This might be the most beautiful city in the world, but it's also a city that many travelers would caution you against visiting. They'd say it's overcrowded, that it's hard to get around, that the locals are unfriendly. Oh, and that the food here sucks. But are those things true? And if they are, do the negatives outweigh the positives? Our family recently went to Venice for the first time ever, and in this video we'll share with you our honest thoughts on whether Venice is worth the hype. I've been sinking lately, and it's hard to move. Think I'm stuck on you. We took the train from Milan to Venice. As we exited the train station, we instantly ran into the first problem with visiting Venice. When people say it's hard to get around, they're not kidding. The hotel we booked was in Murano, which is one of the islands near Venice. That was arguably the first mistake we made. I'll get into the pros and cons of staying in Murano later in the video. The staff at our hotel had told us exactly which ferry to take, so we thought we were all set, but as you'll see, that was not the case. They told us to wait there, we waited there, and then we saw the number 3 boat come over here. So then another ferry guy was like, oh no, you gotta wait over here. So then as we're waiting over here, we see the number 3 boat leaving from there. So we seem to be the only ones taking number 3. I don't know what's going on. This is why we couldn't catch a number 3. Look how few boats there are each day. So now supposedly there's one coming in 8 minutes, but we've been here for an hour. And yeah, this is not a fun way to start off the trip. All right, we're finally on this thing. Mascarina. We finally made it. Thankfully, the hotel's right here. So let's go. We stayed at the Hyatt Centric Murano, Venice. The common areas of this hotel are really stunning, but this is definitely one of those hotels that blew the entire decor budget on the lobby. Everything upstairs was a bit of an afterthought. Why is this hallway so dark? All right. Let me see. Oh my god, look at the canal.
Oh my god, these are the best
views ever. Guys, I requested it special for you. After we got settled in, we headed out to get some dinner. But we weren't the only ones who were hungry. Oh, that was appetizing. I'm ready for dinner now. What? No. The amazing thing about visiting Venice and its neighboring islands is that just about every place you walk to is this beautiful. We had dinner in a nearby restaurant recommended by the front desk clerk. Given that Venice is located on the Adriatic Sea, it's no wonder that Venetian cuisine tends to be heavy on seafood. I wouldn't say that any of the dishes we had this first night were quintessentially Venetian specialties, but we definitely leaned into seafood, ordering squid, fish, and clams. All right, we found a bodega.
What do you want? We found a corner store in Venice.
So, do we get a chopped cheese?
Bacon, egg, and cheese.
Bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll?
They didn't have that, but...
Stop!
I got a Kinder egg.
Oh, okay. Got some candy.
What you got, Shawnee?
I got candy and this.
The breakfast buffet at this hotel was really fantastic. Murano is, of course, known for Murano glass, so after breakfast we headed to a glass workshop to see how it's made. Alright, let me see the haul. So we just went to a glass place.
Look, I bought some with the tooth fairy money. I got this.
Beautiful.
And I got the ring.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Ah, very nice. And then it was time to head to Venice. Instead of braving the ferry system again, we splurged on a private water taxi this time. This is more comfy than the ferries, right?
Alright, I'll do a taxi tour. This looks like alligator or crocodile seeds.
Ostrich.
Ostrich. We got the / taxi driver. Get the beautiful views.
We had lunch right by the Grand Canal and tried the Venetian specialty bacala mantecato, or whipped salted codfish. Then we met up with our guide Federico, a born and bred Venetian local, to learn some lesser-known facts about Venice. As part of this tour, we learned some interesting things about the former red light district in the city. Feel free to skip ahead to this timestamp now if you're watching with kids, or if you'd just rather not hear about it for any other reason.
So, we are in this tiny square, but it's super important because of its past history, which is also summed up in the name you see written over the carampane. It means old prostitutes. So this place is basically called Old Prostitutes, and this is because it was the former red light district of the city. The incredible thing is that we were the first place to legalize it, not because we were open-minded, but simply because we had a problem to solve that regular cities didn't have. The girls were working in the full daylight in the squares, and the square is always facing a church, so basically they saw that happening continuously. Since prostitution was seen as any other business, they put it inside the market. Okay, so here. Just the oldest were living here, okay? The young ones were actually hidden in the back. That bridge is the super famous Ponte delle Tette, which means bridge of tits, okay? The oldest ones kept the best area for themselves, the entrance, because of course everybody has to pass in front of them, they had more chances to sell, and they kicked the most competitive girls farther, hidden in the back, where they were not seen. Those girls were struggling. They couldn't find customers, so they needed to start advertising themselves. Bridge of tits because these girls were coming out of these windows and they were showing what they were selling by opening their shirts, because the ones coming out of the windows were there just because they were the prettiest, just to attract the most of the customers to the island, but then they were not working like real prostitutes, they were sort of live mannequins, let's say. So we can basically say that these girls in the 14th century invented marketing, because I mean still nowadays we are using the same techniques to attract people to our shops, the so-called bait and switch, no? It's called calle stretta, you see it's written over there, which means narrow streets, so wow. It's really not a lot of imagination.
You guys ready for this?
Oh god. As you can see, I can touch both.
There are streets here where they are so narrow that you have to walk diagonal basically, because you cannot even pass through otherwise.
That's funny.
We're here to talk about these wooden structures you see floating on top of the roof, which are called altana. So they were born to be laundries. Something extremely weird started being done on those altanas, because the Scandinavian merchants, which were all male, came down here for the first time, and Venetian girls fell in love with them, because they saw these super tall guys with really long golden blonde hair, light blue eyes and very pale skin. And they fell in love with them because they looked exactly as the angels were depicted inside our churches. The Scandinavian guys, though, couldn't care less about the Venetian girls because they were not really appealing for their standards of beauty. Back home, they had wives or girlfriends which were super tall and with really long golden blonde hair. And when the girls of Venice understood that, they started dyeing, coloring their hair blonde. And you know, nowadays, if you want to be blonde, it's really easy, because you just have to apply a shampoo, which bleaches your hair. The shampoo bleaches because it's made with something you can easily find in nature, which is ammoniac. Do you know where you can find it in nature?
Urine, right?
They were using their own urine to bleach their hair blonde. I know it's disgusting, but I swear this is what all the girls of Venice were doing during the Renaissance, to bleach their hair blonde. And they were doing that on top of the altana for a specific reason. Same reason why they were hanging the clothes to dry, because they needed the sunlight to fix the color to the hair. Okay?
After the tour, we had dinner at a restaurant recommended by Federico. Honestly, it didn't look that promising from the outside, but this ended up being probably the best meal we had in Venice. I'm going to link to Federico's Instagram account below. If you click on the link in his bio and go to My Hotspots, it'll open up an annotated Google map of Venice with bookmarks to all of his favorite restaurants, bars, cafes, attractions, and more. A lot of restaurants in Venice are tourist traps, so this map is going to help you avoid the bad food that is all around. So as you know, we haven't had the best luck with the ferry system here. Getting here was a pain. We got very confused. And then last night we ran into another issue, which is you need to make sure that you're going in the correct direction. These ferries make a big loop. The last couple times we went from Venice to Murano, it was only about 20 minutes. So we were sort of like this part of the loop. And then last night, I guess we took the wrong ferry and it went all the way around. So how long were we on that boat?
Probably an hour and 20 minutes. So it's the same boat. It's like 4.1 is the one we took. So it's the same number boat. But for some reason, I don't know if it's the timing that it takes the long route, but it was way longer than we expected. If you take the water taxi, those start at like 80 euros.
So those are like private water taxis, where it's just a small boat, just you.
Yeah, it's just you. They're really nice looking. So if you take that, it's like a 20-minute boat ride for almost $100. So we did it once, which was fun. The girls loved it. But we don't know if we want to do that every single time we have to transport, because that tends to add up.
Just when we thought we'd experienced every possible snafu with the ferries, a whole new one popped up that morning. None of the ferries outside our hotel were running at all because there was a regatta going on. We were scheduled to take a mask-making workshop in Venice, so we had to walk all the way around to the other side of Murano to catch the ferry. And that added an extra 30 minutes to our journey. Sophia is a born and bred Venetian local and a second-generation mask maker. Her father taught her how to make masks in paper mache and leather using traditional techniques. This was one of our favorite experiences from the trip, so if you've got kids who love a good art project, this is a great activity to book. By the way, our family is visiting 22 cities in 2022, and Venice is the 15th one we've visited so far. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next city we'll be visiting. The next morning, we had a photo shoot scheduled. We didn't want to roll the dice again with the ferries, so we took a private taxi over to Venice.
Or maybe we're several months early for Ella's birthday.
Thank you.
Of course, we couldn't leave Venice without the ultimate Venice experience, a gondola ride. I fully expected to think that this was overrated, but no. It was so magical to see the city from this angle.
Guys, I have another wiggly tooth.
Leave it alone. Don't.
You're ruining my performance.
You're the only child that goes from a wiggly tooth to the whole tooth is out the next day.
Hello, I'm trying to perform my smile. Who cares? I care. I don't and care. You're gonna care because you're gonna sit your little booty down and watch. Anyways, so basically.
Oh my god. Jiu-jitsu. So Sean said that she wants to know how deep the water in the canal is. So she's gonna jump in and let us know.
Yes, let me help you.
Okay. Okay, Ella will do it. Ella will jump in.
I will go. My sister
Bye!
The next morning, it was time to head to our next city. But first, you guessed it, we had to deal with more transport drama.
Alright, so we called this taxi pickup for 9:45 a.m. It didn't get here till 10:10, half hour late. Our train leaves at 10:25, so we're gonna see if we actually make our train or not.
We're gonna make it. She's super nice.
Sean has faith.
She has crystals. She got her crystals.
After talking to the taxi driver, we learned that there was a new twist to the story.
So the hotel just never called.
They never called. The guy told me they just called me 10 minutes ago.
So they just dropped the ball. What did you think of Venice?
It was very fun.
Yeah?
I zoomed this the street. Because if you want to go from one
private water taxi.
Yeah.
At least one time, right, during your trip.
And also do the boat ride. Yeah, the rowboat.
Oh, the gondola?
I recommend them for singing, but I'm not sure. You can ask them to sing, but I guess they don't do that.
No. All right, so we arrived with 1 minute to spare.
You can make it, guys, with no help.
You know, it's actually already 10:25, so the train's already leaving.
So no surprise, we did end up missing our train thanks to the hotel completely dropping the ball on calling for this taxi. Another thing that sucked is that we had booked our tickets in executive class, which is the fanciest car of the train. This class wasn't available on any of the later trains that day, but they wouldn't refund us the difference, so we lost not just time, but money on this little fiasco. So, is Venice worth the hype? Well, I found that a lot of the criticisms people have of Venice to be correct. It is definitely crowded, and as you saw time and time again during our trip, it is legitimately difficult to get around. The fact that we stayed in Murano definitely made it harder for us. Murano has a really nice, quiet, laid-back vibe, but if I were to do it all over again, I would definitely stay in Venice and avoid a lot of the transportation headaches. That said, even when you're exploring on foot, it's very easy to get lost in the maze of narrow streets, and Google Maps is pretty inaccurate here. The food in Venice isn't as reliably good as in other parts of Italy because you have to put a lot of effort into avoiding tourist trap restaurants. One criticism I did not agree with, though, is that locals are unfriendly. I didn't find locals to be particularly warm, but they were polite enough to all of us. And when you consider the fact that there are only 50,000 permanent residents in Venice versus the 20 million visitors that flood in every year, I actually think that locals are amazingly patient in dealing with tourists. All that aside, there is definitely something magical and otherworldly about Venice. I'm not sure if it's the fact that the city is so ancient, or that the architecture and bridges are so pretty, or that it's just so refreshing to explore a place with absolutely no roads or cars. I'd love to come back here in the shoulder season or off season to explore some more when there are fewer crowds. So in my opinion, Venice is definitely worth a visit. Click that video right there to check out why Milan may be the most underrated city in Europe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.